Welcome everyone to tonight's school committee meeting. Welcome back after a little bit of a respite after the holidays. Hope everybody enjoyed themselves, but time to get back down to business. Could I have Alex lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, into the agenda. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda minutes for December 4th, 2014, and oath of bills and payroll?
Motion approved.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Thank you. Interested citizens? Did she lock herself out? No, there she is. Okay. All right. Not at the moment. All right. Moving into recognition, winter sports programs.
Sure. I just wanted to, excuse me, let everybody know that our winter athletic program is in full swing, and that we certainly have a strong program within the district. I had the pleasure of watching a varsity boys basketball game last Friday night. They were victorious against Lunenburg. Great way to spend an evening, see some great basketball, and what's really special about it is you can just see the growth in kids from middle school to high school. And community members, I certainly recommend you go out. Easy parking, don't have to walk half a mile to get there, and good evening of entertainment. Our boys right now are well, they're 5-6
Yes,
at this point in time. Girls basketball is 9-1. And participation rates with 25 boys and 20 girls participating in basketball during the winter season. So quite impressive. Indoor track continues to build, and they're 4-0, both teams, boys and girls. And we have 40 boys and 38 girls participating this season. So they're really building that program as well. Ice hockey, 6-1-1 at this point in time. Strong comeback season from what I hear. And we're expecting them to get better as the season progresses. 36 boys are participating on the hockey team. That's an impressive number. Co-op sports, we have 2 girls participating in Parker Co-op. 7 girls playing ice hockey for Westford, and 11 swimmers in Bromfield. So, great season. Looking forward to watching many more sports as the season progresses. The second acknowledgement has to do with the cheering team, the under-15 cheering team. As many of you know, they went to national competition in Orlando, Florida, and they placed 4th, and it was on December 13th. What's special about this is it's a long way to travel, and the parents and the kids did a great job in earning enough money to be able to go, and when they were there, they made our town proud. So congratulations.
All right, we're going to move into presentations. The first one we have is the implementation of code.org at Shaker Lane School.
Rich Faraday is going to be talking about that, or code.org this evening.
Nice to be here again. Maybe we can go back to the first one. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. This year we decided really to get fully involved in the Hour of Code, which I'm sure everybody has heard a little bit about, and you're going to see a video in a little bit that will explain a little bit more. But before we do, I wanted to talk about why we decided to get involved in that this year. And we really had a couple of reasons. One was to get involved in something that was beyond Shaker Lane and beyond Littleton, that was on a national and international level, and to expose our students to something like that. And the other was to begin to we use technology every day at Shaker Lane. Kids are using it all the time, either Chromebooks, iPads, or desktops. But we wanted to give students the opportunity to learn about what computers are made of, how they work, and what makes them work. So we decided that this was a good opportunity for us to be able to do that. Go on to the next slide, Steve. We wanted to show them program basics in a fun way. And we worked with them and taught them how events lead to other events, what the sequence of events is, how sequences can be limited, but no actions can be undone once you're in a sequence. once you're in a sequence. So we taught them a little bit about loops and events and how to execute, and then how to go back and how to reevaluate what they did. And in the last video clip I'm going to show you, you'll be able to see what the kids had to say about that. Steve, if you want to show the first video, which is just a 3-minute overview of why people decided to bring the Hour of Code down to the primary schools this year, and what were some of the experiences that other schools across the country had.
You ready?
Yep.
What computer science is, it's a way to impact the world.
There's both computer science courses as early as 6th grade.
Like when I was 9.
When I was 13.
4th grade. I was 11.
It was cool from the beginning for them. They were showing other classes they were doing this, they were showing their friends, they were showing their families.
We integrated science with this programming, and I saw my scores go up 30%.
It's foundational for any type of work.
When I grow up, I want to be a music writer on the computer. Why wouldn't they when you grow up, Olivia? And I do programming. An astronaut.
For a newer teacher that hasn't had the experience with it, once you see it being used and see the successes that the kids have, you wouldn't want to not have it in your class.
The skills, the way of thinking, the problem-solving pieces that they learn in those classes, they'll be able to use in mathematics and science and even in English language arts.
You guys have a couple sets of tools that everyone else hasn't learned yet.
We designed the code level courses to feel like we were writing simple code to solve puzzles to get to the next level. And these puzzles even use real game characters like Angry Birds. And the programming uses visual blocks instead of typing, which is how introductory programming is taught at leading universities these days, because it's easier for the kids to get started. And as a teacher, you get a dashboard showing your students' progress throughout the course.
This program got 100% of my students engaged and involved in participating.
Nice work, you guys.
This is so good.
At first I was like, kids, 4th grade, coding, really? Are we sure we want to go there?
The learning is still there. The information is not changing. Our students have changed, and we as teachers need to change along with that.
Which challenge are you taking on?
But if we take on the challenge and do it, I can only imagine where our kids are going to be tomorrow.
Have you done it before?
Yes, it's cool.
Is it really fun?
Yes.
You love it?
And my school's doing it. Yes, I love it.
I love code.org as an organization and as a curriculum.
Oh my god! Whoa! It has to move 3 steps, has to turn right, and then has to go straight down.
They're not just doing programming, they're actually using it to express what they've learned in math and reading and our normal curriculum.
For this side, adjacent to this one.
You need to change that. That's the main thing. Oh yeah! Go, baby, go.
Just the other piece about learning how to think. I mean, how do we go wrong here? You know, I don't know that we do.
Programming is fun and pretty easy. You can do anything your mind wants to do.
I guess I'd like to encourage administrators and teachers to just be open to the idea, because I know that initially I was skeptical.
If it's something engaging and something fun for them, and it builds these critical thinking and problem solving skills, then we're only setting them up for success, and we should be using it.
I feel pretty passionate about the future that we're equipping our kids with a real tool set when they leave K-12 education.
Yeah, that's part of our task, is to educate students that, you know what, computer science is not for them over there or someone else. That's for you here now.
So, what did it do for us? If you want to go back to the PowerPoint, Steve. Yep. What did it do for us? It gave us they talked a little bit about critical thinking skills, and certainly there was that opportunity to work on critical and creative thinking and collaborating and communicating. But it also gave us the opportunity to really fully integrate technology with science, language arts, and with math, and focusing on computer science as well. Opportunity also to integrate the ISTE standards, which we have we're beginning to focus more and more on all the time, particularly communicating with technology, using technology in a safe and collaborative environment, and applying the tools and resources to specific tasks. Go on to the next slide, Steve. Process that we used. I mean, you know, pretty fundamental educational process of engaging kids, exploring, explaining, and applying, and then keeping that cycle going. What we did is in November, we introduced students to basic programming in a couple of different applications that they were able to use. One was called Bebot, the other one was called Daisy the Dinosaur, which was a favorite of our first graders. And then in December, we moved ahead and we used a real paired programming model where students were working together in transitional first and second grade. We didn't do this with kindergarten this year, but we're thinking about it for next year. And we really began with the concrete physical application of having students program us. And so we would set up scenarios in the technology lab and have students give us specific directions on how to carry out a task or to get to a certain place in the lab. Then we began showing them a series of different videos where people were actually learning how to program robots and taking it to something that would be exciting for them. And if you go to the code.org app, you'll see that there are several, I guess you could call them motivational videos that athletes have done and performers have done in order to help students to be able to see that this isn't just something for school, this is something that happens all the time in life. And we took the opportunity to video a few weeks ago some of our second graders and what they had to say about what their experience was and what it was like for them. And I think they did a pretty good explanation of what their experience is like. Remember, they're only in second grade, so.
Hour of Code is the program that you can teach a computer what to do. So computers learn.
Hour of Code is like teaching kids and like teenagers how to code things. And like how to use computers, how to program them, and it's called Hour of Code, so you do an hour of it. That teaches you how to program a computer or a robot off of a computer. What mostly actually the fun part is that there's different stages at it. You start out with Angry Birds. Then you go to Plants vs. Zombies, and then you go to Strike Fantasy, and Icing.
Really cool because you get to try different ways to do, and if it doesn't work, you get to try another way. That's how I think it's pretty fun.
Fun because we could work together and figure out the questions together. I think it made it a little bit easier because the person, like if you can't figure out one, the other person can help you.
Another thing makes it fun because you could like watch someone else do it, but try your own way and it still might work for you. Because the other people might be doing a different level because every person goes at their own pace on the Hour of Code. Because there was
Computers are very important. They help us with stuff, and if we didn't have computer science, we wouldn't have computers, we wouldn't have iPads, we wouldn't have all that awesome technology.
Yes, I think it's very important because you can learn how to use a computer and learn how to make code.
It's actually not very complicated. What you would do is you would choose this, click it, and bring it over here. And when that yellow arrow appears, that means you can just let go of the button and it clicks together like that. And when you're ready, you press run and you watch your Angry Bird go and see when. You can also show code. It shows you the code and how, like what you would write if you were coding something. That's what you would write.
So, as we move away from it, we have a piece of our computer lab time that is always student option. They can choose what they want to do. And we're finding that more and more of our kids are going back to the Hour of Code apps, both exploring new ones that they haven't done yet and going through the familiar ones that they've done before. What are we thinking about for next year? There are actual semester-long courses that you can teach to students, and we're thinking about implementing that during the first half of the year for our second grade students and maybe our first grade and transitional students as well. Thinking about how we can bring this down to kindergarten to even have our youngest students start, and if that is appropriate for them to be able to do that. We're always, questioning, are we doing things just because they're the thing to do, or are we doing things because they can contribute to a student's education? As everybody is all the time. One of the things we found this year, one of the problems was during that Hour of Code week, there were, millions and millions of students across the world that were using the applications. I think it was close to 79 million students in the world. They had set a goal of 50 million this year, and they far exceeded that. But what happens is you have, I don't know how many million people at one time going onto the sites, and it really does affect the speed of what you're doing. So we're thinking about, we certainly will participate next year. We may not participate during the Hour of Code week, so we can give our students full access when they want to, and it won't be a frustrating experience for them. But overall, when we sat back and we evaluated it, we really felt that it was something certainly that students got a lot out of. Certainly excited them and inspired them to learn more. And it was a very worthwhile project for us to participate in. We had dabbled a little bit last year, but certainly nothing to the extent that we did this year. And I have to give kudos to Julie Lord, our technology assistant in the building, who really got us going on it and really did all the research and made sure that we were ready and all set. She did a fantastic job in planning everything out. So, questions, comments?
Questions, Alex?
Yeah, you all have heard me talk extensively about how great I think Hour of Code is, so I won't indulge myself now. Rich, you were saying that, given that the kindergarten schedule is so compacted right now and there's so much change going on, we didn't do it in kindergarten. But at the other level, at first and second grade, how many of the classrooms participated?
All of transitional first and second grade.
Transitional to
all the students. So
Excellent.
13 classrooms.
Excellent. Fantastic.
No questions. I think it's awesome. Glad to see that it's happening. It's cool.
Ditto.
No, it's nice to see the, sort of the understanding what goes on inside the computer and not just being a user of the computer.
Yeah.
I think it's an important concept to have people exposed to, so it's great.
I think too, as someone who took learned how to program a long time ago, but no, it wasn't that long.
Yeah, we're not going to address
It was
that
actually
It was long ago for you. Imagine how long it was
The
for
point
me.
was, the
Thought I'd
class
say
I
it, we'll
took was
check.
aimed at non-computer science majors, and I remember the professor saying, like, somebody was complaining that they couldn't do the assignment. He said, well, what did you do when I gave it? He said, well, I went down to the computer lab. So that was your first mistake. He said, you don't need to go down to the computer lab. You need to sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil, not a pen, and work out the logic, which is really what it is. It's an exercise in logic and conceptualization. And, in the presentation we saw, that's what they reiterated, the skill set and the skills that you're learning. You may never program a computer ever again, but the concepts that you learn will be applicable in many other endeavors, and it's worthwhile in and of itself. And it's just a way of thinking and doing problem solving in a different way than you would otherwise maybe do if you weren't, brought up in this, or using this particular framework. So I think it's great. I appreciate the fact that you're thinking about age appropriateness. It sounds like code.org has already thought about that, and they have different ways of introducing it at the right at different age levels. So that sounds good. And I think that there's plenty of opportunities both in and out of the building to but if you pique their interest in the building, then they can run around on their own, and
Right.
the kids that are motivated to
Exactly.
do so have myriad opportunity.
And a few of those kids that you saw in the video, did bring it home with them. And if you want more information, if anybody wants more information, just go to the Shaker Lane website, go to the computer lab section, and we have a computer science tab now set up that will help direct people through. the process and apps that they may want to look at and do at home.
And then if they get really clever, they'll realize the biggest lesson I learned in life is if you're a good program, you always work smarter, not harder. This is a good way to live.
Very true.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a comparison of the high school graduation requirements with area high schools.
Just before we start, around 3 years ago, we had talked about the International Technology Teacher of the Year. And she actually taught, still does, teach in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. And we showed some segments of the classroom at the school committee meeting and at our first day back, get together with our staff. And I remember the reaction at that time. People felt a little intimidated. They were wondering whether it was within their reach. And we go back, we fast forward 3 years to today, and we've actually surpassed what we saw in the various video clips that we were looking at. So within a 3-year period, we have built the capacity not only with hardware and software, but with our staff to be able to feel comfortable going beyond what we saw in that classroom. We're very proud of our accomplishments during that time, and a lot of the credit needs to go to the staff for buying into the importance of integrating technology into the classroom, and also kudos to our school committee and community for supporting our venture in the acquisition of networks and technology. So it's really pleasing to see what we're doing at the primary level, and it just continues to grow as we go up through our system. So thank you. The next presentation, if you remember back to last school committee meeting, we started the process of taking care of our CPR plan, and part of the requirement of the plan was to begin to offer phys ed during each year for the 4 years of high school. You'll notice when you look at that chart, there is no pattern in terms of awarding of credits per course, even correlated with hours of instruction. The credit amount that we use here, 5 credits for a full course, seems to be the most common across the nation. So we're kind of on track that way, and 2.5 for half a course. To make sense of that, 5 credits equates to approximately 125 hours of instruction. 2.5 credits would be around 62.5 credits. So that probably makes more sense, but it's really interesting when you see the range of how one awards credits. I think you'll be pleased to know that from the last meeting to now, Dr. Herring and I have had many conversations about how do we go about looking at credit requirements, total credit requirements for graduation, and we are going to be recommending that we keep our requirements the same. We'll work within the formula that we have. When you look at that table, you can see that it's really all over the board, but the average seems to be pretty well where we're at this point in time. Having said that, John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah. There's not much more to add about the table. What you'll see in the table, you've had a chance to look at, is variability across the schools in total credits, PE credits, and the number of years required, as the superintendent's pointed that out. Our next step is to look at what we're going to do at LHS, and as just to recap or just to review, we're looking to raise the credit requirements from 7.5 to 12.5 for physical education, and that includes health. Electives would be reduced, though. This is a slight variation from the last time we talked. We were looking, we were thinking, oh, geez, we'll have to add 5 credits. We just added 5 to 116. But what we need to do is we're going to offset that by just reducing the number of electives required. It doesn't mean that our students will take less electives. They'll continue to overachieve and take more courses than required. Our students have a long history of that, of taking way more credits than is necessary. But we need a basement, or a foundation for students who run into different situations that is still challenging, maintains high expectations, high standards, but gives us some flexibility. In the current graduation policy, the school committee has put together a well-written policy where it gives discretion to school-based administrators, in the case of the high school, me, to have some latitude to give different situations. That's a critical critical requirement, and that should stay in the policy. Because there's all kinds of number of situations medically related where we need that flexibility. But we still have that 116 requirement. We also maintain our 30 credit requirement per semester. If you just do the quick math on that, most of our students, just by virtue of doing that, will exceed the graduation requirements. But for one reason or another, there are students who run into situations that are less than 120 credits, or 121 if we include the community service requirement. That's 30 per year. And it's good to have that requirement at 116. I wouldn't object if the school committee opted to go to 121 and maintain the electives at 22.5. But at the same time, it's my recommendation to the board of the committee that to maintain it for the current year at 116, as we add 5 credits to PE, as we have to through the as a result of the coordinating program review, and let our students continue to elect to take courses, as most of them will, beyond 120. And just, we know that most of our students take more science, more social science, and more world language because the colleges, 4-year colleges recommend it, the selective colleges certainly expect it, and our students, the vast majority, do just that. And also as a recap, I just want to update the committee on where we're at. The superintendent's pointed out we've been in discussions throughout the last months, as well as with Dr. Detweiler, about maintaining putting together a timeline and a rollout plan to satisfy the CPR deadline we have upcoming. And so our current 9th grade, with a few exceptions, will be required to complete or fulfill 2.5 credits this year, and that's as a result of the requirement. It's not our preference, but it's the requirement. And so our plan is to communicate this and roll it out to parents and students in February so they can become more aware of it. It's sort of through the grapevine, but it's not widely known that it will impact the freshmen this year, and that our students, I met with some of our class officers this past week, and some of them had heard and others hadn't, that they'll be able to take an LHS sport for PE credit. And there was a lot of excitement in the room when I said that. And they were also excited. One of the officers was very intrigued by the option for the alternative credit option outside a non-LHS sport, being able to satisfy the PE requirement or PE credit requirement. And that's because she's in a really arduous dance routine 4 nights a week for 2 hours, which is well exceeds what she would do in a 45-minute or really 40-minute PE class. So she was excited to be able to have that opportunity. And so our plan is to open the fitness center next year for 3 additional periods a day. We'll have to roll this all out, write it all out for the coordinating, for PQA, the Program Quality Assurance Division of the Department of Education. And we'll roll out or explain to people that we're looking to add 3 additional periods where the fitness center is open. That's basically the afternoon sessions, and hire a part-time physical education teacher to make that possible. Mrs. Perry, who was with me for the last presentation, will really be devoted to the classroom, continuing to teach her electives in nutrition and child development, but also we have this health requirement that all of our students must satisfy, and there's a bit of a backlog on that because we have had only less than 2 full-time teachers, if you think about the division between health and physical education. She explained that at the last session, or the last meeting. But I think it's important for you to have these updates and just to know that the table's kind of busy. You look at it and it just shows variability based on individual circumstances. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I hope that helps the committee and start to get the word out to the parents about the updates and the changes. But we'll certainly be writing a letter to the parents and having meetings with students explaining the changes.
Carol?
No, I'm pretty happy with that. I was a little concerned about bumping up the requirements, given that we had 30. I know you had the 30 per thing, but you would peg it that there was no flexibility in that, in terms of somebody for some reason couldn't do 30 in 1 year. You made it so that they couldn't graduate on time, which puts the students in a difficult position also. So I'm glad you thought through this well here, and we can always see how it goes. And and revise it as appropriate, so.
Mhm. Thank you. It allows us to certainly manage the class sizes and make any necessary determinations as regards to staffing, too, by keeping it at 116.
No, I'm glad it's progressing, and obviously it has to progress, but I think your recommendation is a sound one. I'm kind of curious, I can't believe how all over the board this table is. Yeah, it's bizarre, but how did you go about selecting which towns you put into this? I mean, Cohasset, I know why.
It was actually, they were on our minds at the time.
But I mean, it's kind of...
It's a little random.
It is a little random.
Yep. We selected neighboring school districts, and we also selected many of the districts where I have siblings. I wanted to see what my nieces and nephews were up to. That's the, and they're all throughout the state of Mass. I come from a large family of 9, so I have brothers and sisters throughout the state in different communities, and so it was kind of cool for me to check and see what my nieces and nephews are up to.
Wellesley, it's like, that's
It's an honest stance.
I love it.
That was the rationale.
Good random sample. That's as good a way to random sample something as anything.
The guidance counselors had some good jokes with me while I was telling them. What? Situate?
No, I got nothing. I trust your judgment. You guys handled this really well, so thank you.
Yeah, I think this was great, and I was going to ask about the, where Situate randomness. That's pretty funny.
It's my brother's too.
My other thought was, as we're, the health department at the high school, the wellness department at the high school does so much, because it's not just the health classes and the PE classes, it's also Mr. Lynn being the athletic director half the time. Which is, as we all know, a huge task, particularly, and it's not one that's constant throughout the year. There are some times when it's particularly heavy and other times when it's a little less so. I'm just wondering if, as we add additional half that part-time employee, if we think about different ways to shuffle that, would it be feasible to make him a full-time AD and bring him at 1.0 rather than a 0.5? Or I know that would have a fiscal impact for sure. I'm just wondering if that's something that the team considers when you guys are discussing.
Not for the upcoming school year, we need him. But it's something the committee probably should consider, given the magnitude of that position, the demands of the job, in the future. And it could tie into some increased responsibilities for him in other areas, maybe taking over some additional duties at the middle school or something like that. But that's something that the committee would really need to process and talk to Mike about. The superintendent would need to consider. But I would certainly think that would be something to consider in the next couple of years if our enrollment continues to increase and our participation rates in athletics continues to increase.
The reason I bring it up is just because with the new alternative credit option, there's going to be a lot more paperwork involved, and so that would be another, one more thing for him to do. And it's not. This isn't a suggestion. This is just a. By the way, here's a thought.
I appreciate what you're saying, and so does Mrs. Temple, the assistant principal, because this is an increased administrative demand on us. We still have one person in the front office. So I'm not giving anything more to Mrs. Dion. We're going to absorb this, Mrs. Temple and I, and do our best to work with guidance counselors on it. But it is. We'll see, and we'll be able to give you an update this time next year as to just how manageable it was and how much we're trying to streamline it, keep it simple so that we can manage it, and hopefully that will contain the paperwork piece, especially if we start to create some type of digital portfolio.
Just a little thinking outside the box there.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I was struck by the same thing looking at this chart. I was surprised at the lack of, or the breadth of variability in how schools structure their course offerings and their credit requirements. And I think it just, lets us know that there's not one size fits all solution to this, which is sometimes good. And sometimes I think we feel like we have a little bit too much of the one size fits all being put on top of us. So I agree with you. I think we don't really need to think about changing the requirements, but you hit it on the head. The students have already told us what they want to do in the families in Littleton. And I think as long as we foster that type of commitment to education, and the guidance department and the administrators are fostering that type of commitment to the kids, it's almost meaningless what we set for the graduation requirement, other than being a baseline to move up from, which I think we've clearly done as a district,
Yes.
and I think that, I think that's a perfectly fine way to go, and in some ways, the preferable way to go. When they feel like they're doing it because they want to do it, that's much more meaningful than if we make them do it. So I think we're in good shape in that regard. So.
This is a prime example. I'm an advocate of local control, but there are certain aspects of public schooling where a little bit of guidance would be helpful. When we look at transfer students coming in from other schools, it's a bit of a nightmare when you look at the flexibility that you see. Again, as a superintendent, I would appreciate greater guidelines in that particular area. I guess as a superintendent, I'm what you call a keeper of the wishes as well. And Alex, I appreciate you saying that. And we'll certainly put it in the hopper, so to speak, with all the other things that we've talked about. We've spent a lot of time talking about administrators' increased load as a result of Ed-Eval. We've had to absorb fingerprinting at central office, which was a major task and a major increase with hours without adding staff. So I am a proponent of adding staff if we can afford it. Just a matter of figuring out what we need to do to make that happen. Steve and I did tour the new development today. I was curious to see how it was progressing. And, boy, it's going up fast. It'd be interesting to see what that brings in terms of the tax base as it continues to solidify within the town of Littleton. We will, John and I will get together and we'll tweak the policy and send it to Darryl. And we'll present the revised policy as per our practice.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right. We're going to jump into the superintendent's report. We are going to move around a little bit. Mike Mazzoni does need leave a little bit early, and there's one item on the agenda that he wanted specifically to be here for. So we're going to go right to exploration of partnership with UMass Lowell.
This is an exciting topic. Mike, Principal Harrington, and myself had the pleasure of meeting with the Vice Provost of UMass Lowell, Charlotte Mandel, just this week, and we had an excellent meeting talking about dual enrollment. And dual enrollment that's a little different from the old way of doing it, or the traditional way of doing it. We went into conversation with actually 3 different prongs, but we left with 2 because the third one's a little convoluted, and we need to create the opportunity for success and make sure what we do is going to suit what we feel our students need as they finish their high school education with us. The first area that we were looking at is actually having some university course being offered at the high school, hopefully in the fall of the upcoming school year. We want to be careful what kind of courses we offer. We don't want them to be duplicated or intertwined with the qualifications of our staff. I think that would be problematic. I know that would be problematic as we move forward. But we're thinking of a nanotechnology course to start off with. We actually have another meeting in 2 weeks to meet with some staff and start rolling and start talking about potential writing of a contract, and more importantly, also what kind of scholarship money may be available from various entities, including the University of Massachusetts, to help absorb some of the cost of the program. So that was the first prong that we talked about. The second one is to take a look at the introduction of a blended program. And we've talked about blended programs a lot at the school committee table. And we wanted, again, to look at something unique, something that we're not currently doing, but something that we feel has great value in terms of the 21st century skill set. We considered some course in business. That's an area of our school that has not existed for a number of years, probably around 10 years, I guess, if we go back in history. But another area that is really intriguing is to offer a course on entrepreneurship. We all know, without certainty, but we have a pretty good idea that the future job market is going to be entrepreneurial in nature, and I think the reestablishment of large corporations probably we're not going to see in a long, long time, if ever. So our students are going to need those kinds of skills. UMass Lowell has a great department for business and entrepreneurship, so we're going to explore that avenue. The blended program would allow part of the course to be offered online, within our school perhaps, and also give our students an opportunity to spend some time on campus, which I think is really important too, integrating into campus life, taking a look at the facilities and the equipment that they have. And from our point of view, we feel this is a great direction, but of course we would like to run this by you as a school committee and see whether or not you share in our excitement in terms of moving forward. It's a hard realization in terms of coming to terms with the fact that high schools of the future cannot do everything themselves. And we've certainly embraced this concept. It's taken us a while to become more successful at it, but we've been forming partnerships all along. But this is one of the first major partnerships with the university. And I know you follow the news and you're all well read and you know what's out there in terms of trying to help students receive some type of post-secondary training and not be tremendously in debt. So there's a lot of talk out there about 3-year degrees, somehow lowering the costs. President Obama has already talked about free community college, and so I think we're really into a new paradigm in terms of how this is going to happen. The 3-year university degree is intriguing to me because once you have something, it's very hard to restructure and expect less. So I'm not sure where that's going to go, but one thing we may see is that they're going to be relying more on high schools and high school partnerships with universities to allow our students to start their college career a little earlier while they're still in high school. So I think we're really cutting edge on this. And again, as I said, we're really excited about it. But at this point in time, I'd like to hear from the school committee to see if you share in the vision, so to speak.
Do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I did. Thanks. I'm just super excited about this. Anybody who knows me knows that UMass Lowell is like the second most important thing in my life.
Besides school committee?
Besides school committee, besides Littleton High School. I went to the meeting yesterday with the UMass Lowell tie on, but I had my Littleton watch and my Littleton pin. So I was representing everybody that I knew.
My alma mater,
but
my fence.
what do you say?
My alma mater.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, dual enrollment is just such an exciting topic because there are so many studies that show that students are much more successful when they have a taste of college life before they get there, when they graduate on time. So if somebody has a couple courses of college credit underneath their belt when they go to school, they're more likely to graduate on time. They're more likely to have less likely to have high debt when they graduate. And so I'm excited for the opportunity to have Littleton involved with such a great school. I can't thank John and Kelly enough. They did a really great job of selling how Littleton would be a good fit for UMass Lowell, in the sense that, you know, we've got the type of students that they're going to want to recruit in the future. It's kind of an exciting idea because what they offer are sort of the things that complement what we have here. So, for example, they have a nanotechnology program, and they've got this brand new $80 million emerging technology center that has all this equipment and facilities that we could never afford to build here in Littleton, but that our students could go and take advantage of if we have this type of program. And students would get their first experience in a college level course. It can complement the rigor. If we have students who aren't being challenged enough in the Littleton courses, they could go and take a college level course that would have some more rigor to it. Another exciting opportunity we talked about, which was the third prong, which sort of got more complicated, was this idea of concurrent enrollment, which is, in the future, maybe a couple years from now, we talked about the idea of maybe having our qualified faculty members who have PhDs actually teaching a cohort of Littleton students and a cohort of UMass Lowell students in a college level course. So I don't know, I could talk about it on and on, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to think. I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think it would be sort of a breakthrough for the town if we got this partnership up and running.
I agree. And I know this is very early on, and I would love to hear more about it when the details become more fleshed out. Initially, the two concerns I have are costs. Will it be paid for by the students? Will it be subsidized in part by the university, by the town, or different nonprofits we have in the community? I'm sure there's a solution there. I know no one in the room knows what it is yet, but that'll be worked out. And the second will be transportation, getting them to campus. There is a regional transit system that runs from IBM in Littleton to UMass Lowell, or to Lowell, and then can connect to UMass Lowell, and also to the community college in Lowell as well, Middlesex. And so keeping in mind those different options, there's not necessarily a lot we can do as a school district to make that happen, but I'm sure there are partners at different levels, public and private, that can help us achieve that goal. And I keep exploring. There's so many different ways that this can benefit the town, and it's absolutely worth chasing.
Well, Kelly, since you've come here, this has been, like you said, it's been presented at this table, and I think pretty much every school committee that you guys have been present that I've been at, I've talked about collaboration and sharing ideas and stealing ideas and borrowing, and I think this is right up that alley. I love the idea. I think that if there's anything that we can do as a board to help to facilitate it, reach out, let us know. I'm excited about it. That's great. I think you're right on the right path. And might keep the fire in your belly and march forward with it.
Daryl?
No, I think this is an excellent initiative that we ought to be looking at, because I think it gives different options for courses that we'd never be able to offer internally here. So fully supportive of the initiative.
I think we can all agree that, I think you hit the nail on the head, Kelly. This type of thing is going to happen. It's just a question of how it happens over time and how quickly it happens, not just in Littleton, but overall across, Massachusetts and the country. You talked about some of the broader policy concepts that are being espoused at the White House and other places. So I think the fact that we can get in front of that and be part of it, I think will help us, because it's going to happen anyway. And if we can get in front, I think our kids will benefit. I think Alex is right. The devil's going to be in the details, and I think that's all that we're going to really worry about as school committee members, is just making sure that we continue to advocate in the best interest of our students, and that we don't get too far in front of the process at the expense of our kids. We don't make them guinea pigs per se. So we just got to keep an eye on that. And my biggest concern is inclusiveness, not just financially being able to offer it to kids that might not otherwise be able to afford it, but also the breadth of the program, so that it's not STEM centric for kids that aren't necessary. Now that's a little different, because like you said, you don't want to cross over on things that we already teach at high school, but there's plenty of other things that are not STEM related that are still very viable and valuable. Philosophy and things like that we could think about doing as we get down the road. So as long as we keep a focus on the inclusiveness, I think that would help a lot. And then I think you're right. I think we just we'll have to wait and see how this fleshes out, and we'll be interested to see what the details are. We'll be supportive.
That's great. It's a good point. We failed to mention that. We went in there with the philosophy that we wanted well-rounded programming, and specifically said that STEM is a component, but it's only part of what we want to do as we evolve. We are being cautious. We want to make sure that we dip our toe in the water, so to speak, before we jump in entirely. When you have another partner that's that large and has policies that are very different than public school systems, we have to tread lightly. But what was really enlightening to me is one of the fellows that was part of the meeting had a lot of experience in this area, and it really quickly created a confidence level with all of us. So we're excited about that. One thing that's a lot different since I was in my graduate studies many years ago is when you started at a university, if you transferred, you could just give your credits away, because universities just didn't take them for some reason. It didn't matter what quality the university was, how it was ranked. It was kind of ridiculous. But in this day and age, especially in undergraduate studies, transfer credits are becoming far more common. And so that also creates a greater comfort level with me in terms of students starting some credits at UMass Lowell, and it's great if they went there, but if they choose to go to another university, they're transferable. And to me, that was an important factor as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to jump back up. We're going to go to proposed FY16 capital replacement plan.
turn that over to Steve.
Big piece of paper in front of us.
Yeah, so it's the big piece of paper in front of you, is an updated, slightly revised plan from what was submitted in the packet. So, the top of the report just shows the projects that were approved from last year, and it just gives the committee an update on where those projects stand. I won't get into those details, you can read it, and if you have questions, I'll answer the questions. Further down on the list is the list of pending potential projects of capital items that we've submitted also to the town for their funding. This list has been reviewed both by the superintendent and by the administrative council, and it is in priority order at this point in time. The one change from the report that was in the packet to this hard copy is items 8 and 11 just swap places. Those are the only two that we switched, just as a note. So if the committee would like, we can go through and discuss each of these projects, or I can answer questions at the chairman's discretion.
Before we dive in, let me just make sure I set the tone right. So what we're trying to do here is to finalize our order of priority. I mean, I appreciate the fact that we have some of the ongoing things on here, but really tonight what we need to do is finalize our priority to submit to the town for consideration by the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom along with us what's going to be submitted to town meeting.
That's correct.
Now, tonight we're not going to determine what's going to be submitted to town meeting. We're just going to submit our order of priority, and then there'll be ongoing discussions because there's going to be a cutoff point. Not everybody's, obviously, it never happens that everybody gets everything they want, and we'll work that out with the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom. So we're looking at, facilities, PMBC approved projects downward is a prioritized list of things that we want for next year.
Correct.
Okay.
From the pending items down is the items that will be submitted on behalf of the school department.
Oh, okay. So pending items down, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Mike Bizzoni and I also met last night with PMBC and went over some of the pending projects that are on PMBC's list.
Gotcha.
That will affect the school facilities, for instance.
Gotcha, but they've
that's
already
under
been
the
approved.
PMBC purview.
Gotcha, okay. All right, so what we're considering then mostly tonight is the pending items list and making sure that we're okay with the prioritization.
That's correct.
So that we can submit that to the Board of Selectmen and go through the capital process.
Correct,
with
and
the rest of
once the town releases its and finalizes its capital numbers, which they're working through, they'll give us what our final dollar amount is, and we can look at it again if we need to.
Okay, so given that, what I would like to do is limit the discussion for the moment on that pending items list, and then if we have other questions or comments on the things that are above it, we'll circle back to that.
Okay.
But let's just keep it focused on that, just so we can get this done tonight, because we did promise that we would. Okay, Darrell, do you have any particular questions or points of view?
Okay, I was just looking through, so the card access Shaker Lane, that one's probably all the way down the bottom, it's probably gonna get missed this year, but I saw the high school, we're doing one set of card accesses, is the,
That's the intent, to do
Yeah.
one next year
Okay.
and one the year after.
Yeah, we tried to balance the list with facility needs, security needs, educational needs, et cetera, and tried to get a good balance. So depending on the level of funding, we can try to address a little bit in each area.
but from the safety perspective, we were
Yes.
trying to address at least one school
Yes.
in whole, right?
Yes, the high school.
Yeah, correct. And then could you touch on the category building and the maintenance of facilities? Is that going to move to the PMBC management? Is that the thought here, or is this going to be proposed out of the?
So see how in the categories list, you have technology, security, are the ones that we make it through the process that are listed as building maintenance facilities, would those pass the PMBC?
No, if they're in this pending list, they would be under the purview of the school department, not the PMBC.
So what, I guess, what was the discussion between PMBC and the building maintenance funds and us putting building maintenance activities in our budget?
Well, because it was more along the lines of who was going to control the project and be the lead person on the project. So
We did have a conversation about a month ago with PMBC chairman, and went through the capital replacement plan with him and wanted to make sure that we didn't have any overlap with what we were doing in terms of the plan that we were submitting. I don't know if that helps you out, Daryl. I haven't been privy, I haven't seen the updated plan for this year yet. I don't
So
think it
my
exists
concern
yet.
on that approach right now is suppose on his list, there's 10 items and they can only fund 5 of them. Would those be higher priority than some of these ones here that we ought to make sure get dealt with, or not? There's a gap there in the process with 2 groups independently prioritizing the facility items.
We're certainly aware of that, and if you recall, back to previous meetings, it was our wish that we had that list before we completed ours. Another request that we had, and it wasn't able to be actualized at this point in time, is having an approximate dollar amount. If you're going to buy a car, you need to kind of know what you have in order to determine what kind of options you want. I see a capital plan to be very similar to that process. So I guess those are 2 areas that we have concerns about, but at the same time, we had some requests to get this information in so that they can start considering it, and we just didn't want to make sure, we wanted to make sure we didn't lose out on anything.
Right. Just the carpet one comes to mind is I don't know what lists of priority items they're working with, and where would our view of carpets fall within that?
Right, so we've
overall
coordinated, we've gone over this list with PMBC, and we're coordinating their list and our list. I shared this list with PMBC last night, so they're not duplicating it. PMBC is focusing a lot of their efforts on that EMG facility study and taking items off of that list. And some of these items that I've listed as facilities were not on that EMG study list. The doors and things like that are not necessarily on the EMG facility list, but we think they're important enough to put on our list.
I think what you're suggesting, Daryl, is that we request that we have the opportunity to exercise the right to revisit the list once we know what the other list entails.
I think so, and I'll let go of this in just a second here, that I think we need to look at that whole process of how these 2 separate lists are generated and merged, because I thought the whole purpose of the facilities maintenance plan there was to pull in all the things that we know have life cycles, which include carpeting, and that's why I'm surprised to see it in here, and you're saying it wasn't on the facilities list, the facilities studies list there, so it brings me back to why wasn't it, and I just don't want to lose, if they're going to use that process, it needs to make sure it's fixed and robust going forward.
Again, some of the discussion we had with PMBC was who was going to be the lead, I guess, coordinator for the project, and because we have a relationship with a carpet company, we've done the carpets before, we can work on the scheduling, and when those get done, it's much easier for us as a school department to manage when those projects get done than try to bring in another third party. So it's kind of a management
Execution manager
thing.
to me is a separate role than the budget priority.
I see the
aspects
point
of
you're making. I think it's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up. In some of the other meetings I've been at, I think that the town is still grasping with the best execution strategy for that capital replacement plan. And I think that we need to let that play out a little bit. I think you're right. I think we should keep a careful eye on how these parallel tracks move forward, and we might pull something back, or ideally, I think what you're saying is let's get rid of some more stuff, put it up on that track where we think it rightfully belongs.
Yeah, I guess I'm suggesting we be active in that and not just a passive observer.
Right.
of
And
the
it sounds like
process.
we are, and that's fine. And I think that hopefully that'll get ironed out on its own, and then this list will become more like I think what we would hope to see. So I think if we just leave it like that for now, just make sure that we're letting that process play out. But you're right, that we're advocating, in a meaningful way for the schools, to help out. I think that would be good.
I don't think it was ever the intent of the other group, so to speak, to take over the list of capital items in terms of lifespan, et cetera. It was an additional way of dealing with impending needs. That was my understanding. And again, I think we're evolving right now. Ideally, I agree with what you're saying, Daryl. It would be nice if we had streamlined objectives for each area, because there are certainly areas that that, as a superintendent, I'd like to put into that capital plan if we could take things like rug out of there.
Right.
So I think it will evolve through time, but certainly a great
And I
question.
guess that's what's in back of it is I know that we're responsible for the buildings. There are, our buildings, but the town's buildings too. And I'd like our focus to be on the educational content of it, not the upkeep of it. But at the same time, we got to make sure that the upkeep is kept up.
By our standards and our priorities.
Yeah,
That's what we're trying to do.
Right.
On it there. And then only in an emergency do we need to fall back and cover it out of, out of our deliberations, in terms of the day-to-day pieces.
Anything else?
No.
Chuck?
I guess I'm looking for just some additional information, like on line 37, high school technology equipment. Pretty vague.
Routers, keyboards.
Chromebooks
Well,
and
up above, we,
help you with that.
Yeah,
line
it was,
27, I
it's
think you
our
said miscellaneous.
Document cameras.
Well, we're expecting, I can tell you specifically with the addition of the advanced computer science class, we're gonna have some equipment needs. The superintendent and I are discussing that. We're trying to figure out if code.org, through our partnership with them, can help us a little bit with that, because we've signed an agreement with them. But there also are some additional software needs for our digital media courses. I found out today that one of the software, that critical one, Photoshop, has not been purchased in about 10 years, so we need a huge upgrade there. That's expensive.
Dr. Holdings requested.
Well, he's a category all the time. He's
Yeah.
a whole lot different spreadsheet.
We can certainly
But I mean,
provide.
He's like Dexter's Laboratory.
If this is in front of town meeting, the question's going to get asked.
We need some
Yeah,
details.
we can certainly provide that and have those details.
I agree.
We'll have nailed them down by then, narrowed that
But
list I just gave you down.
But if I interpret your comment a little bit there, the distinction between high school technology equipment and miscellaneous tech equipment is,
Line 27 versus line
could be just
37.
even clarified a little bit here.
Yep, sure.
Without the detailed backup piece on it.
Okay.
And I think it would be helpful to not just, obviously we have limited space, but if we were even to say high school computer science equipment, or, which
Yep.
is a little more than technology, which would be
It gives us
based
some
in the building.
flexibility.
And
because we
I
don't-
think it's
yeah.
important that we break it out, because obviously, you're not asking for all the technology to be bucketed together, because you're probably thinking you're not gonna get all of it, so you have priorities of where you would apply technology, and this one's a little lower down the list. But I think we just need to be consistent in how we specify technology, and understand why that's a little bit lower than something else is. I think if we detail it, it'll help us understand
Yeah,
more,
we-
and
we
we'll
will
be back to
provide
you
those
guys all
details.
the way on that, but,
Good point.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've got comments on a couple different things. One of them is on line 27, things like replacing broken projectors and things like that. A lot of corporations, we don't have a whole lot of corporations in Littleton, but a lot of companies are upgrading their technology. They're using smart TVs instead of projectors and things like that. I don't know if this is an opportunity, but we've got a lot of parents that work for a lot of these companies that may know of something, may be privy to something. So it may be an opportunity for us to do an outreach and say, hey, you want to help the school?
I think what's important to know, even though our buildings are beautiful and new comparatively to other communities around us, I'll use the middle school as an example. I think we're going on, 9 years, 10 years? I'm getting ballparking that right. Those projectors are already out of date because we're going full wireless and full HDMI. And the high school projectors, I believe, most of them have been rotated out to get to the
Right.
HDMI level. So
Right.
we're not just looking for companies. It's a great suggestion, but we need specific technology
We can be
to
specific.
match the
Yeah.
Apple TVs and to match the stuff that we're
So you're saying it's a long shot, but it's.
Well, I'm not saying it's a bad suggestion,
It's
but.
with Rich, when Rich did his fundraiser a couple years
Totally
ago,
worth
he said, we just need money.
Right.
I know
Yeah,
my
that's
kids'
different.
grandparents appreciated writing a check out to the school. They didn't have to wait for candles or order wrapping paper.
Right.
That really helps with the furniture.
If you're specific and you ask, they either do or they don't.
Yeah, and
If
the
they do,
if you remember when we did the iPad initiative 4 years ago, the PTA did a specific middle school tech fundraiser, and it was the same thing.
Exactly.
People gave because they knew what they were given for.
Exactly.
I just so that you understand, it's not like they're just broken. In some cases, it's hard to believe, but they're already obsolete. It's crazy.
I use one I'm working with that.
You know?
Just comments on line 30. Whenever we're painting, I just think of MCI opportunities to bring in some low-cost labor. So, just as something to look at, Steve. I'm not saying this is what we should do, and it might be tough in Russell Street because we rent the building out, and it's the whole, some security issues, if you will. Again, comment, line 36, 20 round tables cost 24 grand. I'm baffled by that. But it's over $1,000 per table.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive tables.
Getting the table
Yeah,
business.
furniture.
The lunch tables are...
To make lunch for you.
But Chuck,
refrigerated.
but Chuck, you have to remember, they have a long lifespan.
They do.
They really do. And the
We've
ones
had the
the
same
ones that are
ones
at
for
Russell
18,
Street have been
19
there
years.
for,
So it's
20
typical
years.
furniture
I mean,
markup. You know, it is.
you know,
Bernie.
if you buy cheap tables, they're not gonna last long, so.
Yeah, it just jumped out at me like, holy mackerel. All right, did the technology thing. On line 40, high school locker rooms, we ripped all those, just about all those lockers out a couple of years ago.
Correct.
The center one, Jeff.
The center
Yeah.
ones.
So,
This would be a proposal to replace the existing banks of lockers that are on the outside and then add an additional bank of locker. We would be adding additional storage lockers.
and this is being requested?
Yes, absolutely. We
Okay.
have a huge need for this. We have tin cans right now that are just barely able to meet the needs of our students. We have, our rates of participation have gone through the roof for PE classes, well, really for athletics. So our kids have, a lot of their belongings are left unlocked throughout the day and even after school hours. There's a concern with theft. We take pride in our kids and their behavior, but there have been issues, even this year, with missing items from students' bags because they're unable to lock their belongings. So we're concerned about that, but aside from that, it really is time for us to upgrade the locker room itself with the right. It wasn't installed properly the first time with the right lockers. They're not. We did a comparison recently with Air Shirley. We have some photos.
It's upgrading right now.
Yeah, and we have photos from them, and we like what we saw. And Steve and I think the superintendent met with Mike Lynn and looked at it, and the space is now configured with, as Steve pointed out, to pull out 2 sections of lockers, replace those, and then add another section where there's a place for it, I guess, for lack of a better
Okay,
phrase.
that's all I was looking for, just to make sure that,
Yeah,
I know a lot of the athletes like that it's open right now.
Well, it would stay
The great
stay
thing is, we're
open.
not going to lose that concept at all with this design, with this installation.
It would stay open
It's a
and
way
we
we get both.
the capacity after this proposed retrofit would be approximately 120 and some odd numbers set of lockers. And right now, there's probably 60, maybe?
Yeah, it's also a problem when we have visiting teams come over, for when we're hosting.
Yeah, we don't care.
Yeah, but we don't care about them as much because we don't have the football field there. But, it's more of an issue for our own students, for sure.
Right, and that number was actually revised down from the original proposal that we put out. And we carried it forward from last
Asking a
year.
question about AD input, because I know a lot of, not that the athletes make the decisions, but,
That would
there's
be-
fewer basketball players than there are football players, or, the hockey team doesn't use it at all. So
It would be great to have.
That's great.
We did spend considerable time with Mike Lynn, and the perimeter concept really makes sense. At times, during our conversation, we obviously, for me, it wasn't a surprise, and not for John, but we have 90 kids in that locker room at a time during certain times of the day. So that configuration would work. Now, again, if you remember a few years ago, I wasn't interested in doing anything until we saw how this would go after we cleaned them up.
Right.
And, knock on wood, I feel that they've done a good job. The kids have done a good job of keeping the locker room the way it should look. And so I feel comfortable moving forward with the plan, if we have the money to do so. In terms of the technology, Chuck, thank you for bringing that up, because one of my requirements as a superintendent is that every school has a technology plan. Nothing that they just think something up one day. There needs to be a long-term vision. But more importantly, it needs to be linked to the international technology standards. So before equipment will be bought for any of our schools, there will be a process of justification in terms of how is this going to accomplish the learning objectives that are contained in International Technology Standards Plan. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I appreciate it.
Projectors, for me, there has to be a good case to have projectors in the classroom when our vision and philosophy for the past few years have been to go with Apple TVs. So I'm certainly aware of that, and I do appreciate you bringing this up. And we do need more detail in those areas. Thank you.
The only other area that I had a question on, I think, is on line 43, fencing. Just more specific. Well, first of all, there's two different things on that. So fencing, high school fields, and then dumpsters. I would recommend not fencing in the dumpsters. They become mangled. We replace them in 3 years. They don't do anything aesthetically to make the dumpsters look any better than they do right now. They're dumpsters. That's where trash and recycling goes. I would strongly urge that we not replace the fences around any of the dumpsters.
So again, it's pretty far down on the priority list.
Yeah, and I'd actually push that, I'd break that one off of there. If it went away, that'd be okay. But what are we talking about as far as fencing around the fields?
Mike Lynn has some ideas. There's some baseball fencing along one of the sideline, I don't remember all the details, one of the sidelines and along the path that's there. And there's a couple other places where he's talked about putting some fencing
Up at the
for
high school?
security. Up at the high school. Yeah.
Ask him. Get with the man.
Again, it's pretty far on the priority list, so we didn't.
Yeah. Okay, I'll ask him.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Just before we move on from that point, with the dumpsters, if it's feasible not to fence the dumpsters and just fence the high school fields, or just for this particular cost, can we edit that or modify that later on down the road?
Oh, absolutely.
Of course.
So it's just the fields rather than
Absolutely.
than the dumpsters and
Sure.
Yeah, as the committee or the need arises up the priority list, we would go out and get better, more up-to-date quotes on the fencing and exact linear footage and all that
Probably
kind
have
of
a
stuff.
little more in-depth discussion about what the real requirement is and why we're doing this versus something else
Right.
is what we're going to care about.
Correct.
So that's
and
fine.
maybe throw the dumpster idea in the dumpster.
There you go.
Trash it.
Yeah. My thoughts on this were less on the particular items and more on what we're expected to get. Last year, we had discussed this in budget the other day. We got maybe $3,200,000. I think it was somewhere in the 300.
We got $320-something thousand, I think. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact
Yeah,
number.
so we
but
got
yeah.
somewhere between 300 and 350. That's generally pretty standard for the past couple of years. When I look at what's on the cusp there, that's really what I care the most about in the priority list, because I don't care if number 1 and 2 are switched, because we're going to get them. And I don't really care if the very bottom of the list is switched, because chances are we're not going to get them.
Right.
So, but when we look at the hot spot, if you will, it's that area between 300,000 and 330,000 or so, where I'm more worried about, okay, is this really, if you had to pick between this and this year, what would you like? And so not being in the administrative council discussions, and I know all the principals have their own, a much better understanding of their buildings than we do. With that in mind, and knowing now what high school technology equipment is, if it's going to go directly towards let's say the advanced programming classes or something at that level, that to me that's instructional. I'm not sure if that's the term that you might use, but I see that as related to instructional costs, and so I might want to bump that a little higher, because I see the cost of waiting 1 year on that to be greater than waiting 1 year on, for example, the tables. But again, I'm not seeing the tables every day, so if the tables are falling apart, you guys know that better than I do. So I just want to make sure that the discussion being made here is not just, here's a complete list 1 through 45 or so, but looking specifically at lines maybe 33 through 37. If you had to pick half of those, which would they be? And I know that's sort of, a difficult question to ask, but just when we consider it, for instance, the chairs and tables and the technology equipment is an easy one, and that might be, I don't mean to take a cheap shot at these, at the tables, because I imagine if they last 20 years and you're asking for them to be replaced, they probably need to be replaced. And I know that's a not a great, one of those things that's not the sexiest thing to ask for, but it's one of the things that, you need to do. The basketball backboards as well, at the Russell Street school. If they were at the high school, where we're using them at the high school level, I imagine they probably need to get replaced more often. So just some thoughts there, making sure that the high school technology equipment programming needs will get moved up a bit. Things to that effect.
You bring up a good point, and that leads into two questions. Well, one question I have and one response I have to what you just talked about, Alex, is, so the Russell Street replaced the basketball backboards. I mean, are we literally talking about replacing the boards and just putting up new backboards?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Well, you're in there, you've seen what they look like.
I know, and the thing is that from a basketball point of view, that gym is serviceable, and we really only use it for younger kids and practices. We don't use it for games. Our footprint there is smaller than it is, way smaller than it is from a youth basketball perspective than it is in the middle school. Like, I'm not advocating for that as the president of youth basketball.
No.
I'd say, hey, I'd rather go get something else for the schools and live with, because really what I would like to see at Russell Street, if we're ever going to do anything, is, because they're just bolted to the wall, is two of them do go up and back, but the ones under the bleachers, but I mean, that's really old, and it's literally,
Right, so the ones on the far side of the
right, are bolted to
bleachers
the wall.
are bolted to the
and,
wall.
Yeah. What I would love to see at some point is really low on the priority, but it would be to replace them all with a, raising and super, exactly, just the way we have in the other gyms. And until we were going to do that, I'd say leave it the way it is. Unless there is a, gym teacher reason why they think it's a safety issue, which I know it's not, then I would say, we could think about moving that one down. The other thing that I would say about the chairs and tables is, could we do half now and half later, and then that would free up another $10,000 that could go towards technology or something like that. So, seriously, the backboard one, I would, unless you guys have a specific reason why you think that's more important. If you have the reason, tell me now why you think that's more important than high school technology, because I'm going to tell you I want the high school technology above that.
No, that's fine. There's no, I have no compelling reason other than we've redone the gym and everything else, and the
Yeah,
gym looks
I get
nice,
you.
but the back,
That's what it should have done.
Yeah,
that's true. If it could have been, that's true.
It could have been.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
I'm scared. I'm still,
Yeah,
I'm not sitting here going, wow, what a great opportunity. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's like, it's not that big a
Right,
deal.
the backboards on
I'm
the
okay
far
with it.
side that are supposed to go up and down, they
Right.
don't.
They do if you crank it really
Replacing
hard.
with new ones, they would go up and down, using the same
Yeah.
structure, so.
I would say that if I were going to do that, I would roll that right down underneath. I would even roll it all the way underneath the card access.
Fine.
Even the locker room. I would do the
49?
I would do the lockers first. High school, library, seminar,
Yeah,
room
that's-
broadcast video
that's-
upgrade.
Oh, that's
I would
fine.
I would put it right above the fencing.
Sure. No, that's
Are
fine.
you guys okay with that?
I'd actually propose something else,
Which is
bottle fill stations. Replace bubblers with bottle fill stations. We talked with Scott, who's our energy guy?
Dave Riley.
Yeah, that's right.
I
met with some students who have a proposal for that. Actually, they're going
That's
to get that
interesting.
started. We met just this week.
Why don't we let that play out on its own?
And,
I don't want to like start adding things to the list.
I agree, but.
Because we'll go down the rabbit hole and.
There's a plan for at least one or two of those at the high school through a student-led effort, which I was very impressed about. But it's in its first stages.
I really appreciate the conversation about technology, and with the vagueness we have with the two different funding sources. One thing we had talked about in our leadership team meeting is we have been technology intensive during the last 3 years, and we wanted to ensure that we were taking care of the other parts of the system as well. And that's why that one item had slipped down a bit on the technology in itself. We slipped it down a bit, just to show that we truly want to take care of all the needs of the district. So I really appreciate you saying that. I know we still have technology needs, but at the same time, we have other needs, and until we work out the vagueness of those two pockets of money, that we were just being
conservative.
cautious and
And again, all we're coming up with is the priority list for tonight. So why don't we shove down the backboards, much lower down the list, and then let's submit it And then, Alex, you brought up a terrific point. Really, the rubber's gonna hit the road when we get a final number, and we may throw out 2 more things out and move something back up, because we just didn't get to where we wanted to get to, and it makes sense strategically to do it like that. So we could save that discussion for when we have a lot more information than we have tonight.
Yeah, we just
so.
wanted to have a prioritized list because the Board of
Yeah, we have to do
Finance
that for
Committee
sure.
were asking
Yeah.
for it.
I just have one comment about, I appreciate the attention to the high school technology. Just this morning, I met with Kelly Ogden, who's the teacher of the advanced computer science class, as well as with Mike McGeckern, and we're going to bring it up on the day of a school committee meeting, but we just learned some additional information this morning about requirements for the course that would, I said, the capital plan's already submitted to the school committee in the packet. So I'd like to meet with the superintendent, have a chance, he knows about this because I talked to him briefly about it this morning, but I'd just like
That's
to
fine.
have a chance to meet with him and see what we can come up with in terms of fleshing out that number and specific items.
Yeah, that's fine. That's great.
And one thing we didn't mention tonight, we really need to mention it, is now that we have an established direction for technology in our district, and we've talked about BYOD, and we haven't been able to actualize that as much as we can because we had network issues, but now we don't. And I had a conversation with John the other day. We need to really determine what our pronounced platform is. And to me, it's probably Chromebooks, but we need to verify that, and we're almost there. And we need to start talking with our community about that and our kids about that. When you go to high school, there's always something you need. And the calculator, scientific calculator, was one thing that we all bought. Some of us had slide rules, but we won't go there. But that is something that can be actualized. A $300 cost over 3 years is not a lot of money. And a lot of schools are starting to do that, but what's important is that we have a firm direction that isn't going to change for at least 4 or 5 years, and we're almost there. And we need to do a better job of that. But in all fairness, it was just this year that the high school truly was ready to embark upon that journey.
And then at the same time, you've got some classes that really need the processing, the local processing. I think in the graphics area, I know in the physics and the science areas, the Chromebooks are not the tool that's appropriate for those courses.
Although we had a conversation with that department, and they are feeling that with the advancements in the past 2 years, that Chromebooks will meet most of their needs. It's just one physics component.
Yeah, the biology teachers specifically feel that, and that's really good information because that's a whole 9th grade. You know, so and then of course the advanced courses in that with those 2 teachers, you know, they teach electives as well. They use the Chromebooks throughout. They both said they could both use Chromebook cards. But then that's a number of 60, and then you start thinking we're a school of 450. We're already at 120 Chromebooks. We're not far off.
Right.
From having one for every student.
That's the conversation
Really?
we're having at the middle school too. If our capital improvement plan and my budget plan for next year come to fruition, you're talking about 5 cards times 30.
Next year we're halfway there.
You're halfway there,
Practically.
and so you know, we whispered about 2 to 1. You're at a veritable 2 to 1 already, and so you know, we talk a lot with the superintendent about that balanced blend between district provided devices and BYOD. You can't, regardless of affluent community or low income community, you can't just set up expectations and think everybody's walking in with the best device on the planet. I think the 4 of us have a good handle on our levels and what kids are carrying and aren't, and what our community can provide and can't. We have to provide, you know, building-based technology plans that blend the world of BYOD with school-provided devices, and we're there. And at the middle school, we've talked about always making sure we have that one PC lab, because we are teaching certain things in that lab that are really important, but then he's blending,
we need that,
you know, web-based stuff as well. So I think Superintendent's right. We're in 2 to 3 short years, we've really started to get a handle on what our plan is going to be, and I now know, like 2, 3, 4 years from now, what direction we're going to be going in. And I don't think we could have said that 3 years ago either. So.
Yep.
So circle us back to this conversation. I know we all have talked about technology. The other thing I would add is not just when we look at what's on the cusp there, I would also, personally, I would want us to prioritize those just a little bit, the things that have a good, very short return on investment. If it pays for itself in a year or two, if we pay for it now, it probably will have paid for itself by the time that the town would pay for it if it were further down the list.
Right.
And I think we do a good job of that right here. I'm not suggesting any changes to that. But if we were to make those changes, I'd want those sort of things to sort of try to remain high as much as possible, because it's going to have a good return on investment. It's a very small cost, really.
All right, I think we have a consensus. We'll just move the backboards down, submit the list to the Board of Selectmen and Bonnie. And if we could do that by Monday, that'd be great. And then we'll just let the process continue, with the appropriate detail, and then we'll let the process play out, and we'll be back on this again as we get closer to town
Yep,
meeting.
and
for
you want the high school technology line, and we'll provide more details. You want that moved up as well a little bit?
I think for now we can leave it there and let's see where the cutoff comes.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't be an issue. Maybe it'll get encompassed into that, but
Maybe they'll fund everything.
Close enough that we get that, and then we can.
Yeah, we know that's
I would
not
think
gonna
that would be a
happen.
discussion we would want to have later when we see where the number is. Because frankly, maybe it won't even be. Maybe we're not going to get anywhere near it, so it's
Yeah.
going to become moot. We'll see.
Right. And PMBC struggled with that last night between what their list is and what, the town's list of funding available is. So
The
they're
thing is,
struggling.
I want to make sure we think about it. This is a list that was submitted by the admin team. They've clearly spent a lot of time and effort on it, and I don't really, while we have things that are near and dear to our hearts, whether it's technology or basketball backboards, I'm hesitant to second guess them unless there's a really compelling reason, or we can offer something to them that maybe highly unlikely they hadn't thought about. But short of that, I would say we're pretty much going to leave this the way it is and let the process
It's a good list.
unfold. Yeah.
Well, to be clear and to defend Russell Street, the basketball thing was my initiative, not Russell Street, so.
All right, good. So let's get that to them. That would be good.
Where are we bringing that down to?
considered sucking up
What
to the
line
chairman.
item?
They can figure it out, but I would put it all the way down by the.
Just if we're approving it, I would.
Yeah, I
want
would
to
put
know
it
where we want it.
down by the high school locker room, below the high school locker room doors. Excuse me, high school locker room lockers.
But the backboards moving way down?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put them way down the bottom.
Doesn't seem like a
Not a big
priority.
deal.
I put them on the I literally go last.
That's fine.
I can take them off the list if you want me to, it doesn't matter.
It's good to keep them, it is something that we'd
Well,
love to, we'd
again,
love to
some-
replace
Yeah,
them.
like I
Again,
say,
some-
I would really like to see on the list in terms of not replacing the backboards per se, but just replacing that entire system.
Right, but again, some of this is to raise awareness
Right.
of it.
Exactly,
It might
so
be
it
a
should stay
future
on the
need
list.
coming down the line, so maybe
Yeah.
basketballs is 3 years out or 4 years out, who knows?
All right,
That's a good point.
good. We're good?
All right. Yep.
All right, done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. All right, next on the superintendent's report, youth risk behavior survey update. Mr. Dunn,
Yeah.
that's okay.
This was or we have the results more correctly for the survey that was administered. One snag that we have in the process, so we only have one presenter, and we've used Jim Byrne for a number of years. He does a great job. But they only have one in the department, and he's going to be out of the area until April. I'd requested that, ideally he'd be here in February, but that's not going to be possible. So I guess the question I have for you, are you fine with that, or would you like us to put a presentation together? The report has been circulated to the schools are working on plans. We've been looking at this at central office as well. I have the binder right on my desk and keep flipping through it. So we do have plans in place, but as a school committee, I just wanted to know what your desire would be.
I like the idea of having him come because he's going to be able to talk about the youth risk behavior survey results for Littleton in the context of what they do overall, which I think is an important component. I think obviously our response, which you guys are going to be able to talk to better than he will, we're going to want to hear that for sure. But I don't want to miss out on what he might have to say relative to our results, relative to what he's seeing and what his staff is seeing out there. So that's my point of view, and I don't think the timing really is. You guys are going to do what you're going to do. You're going to keep us. And if you want to do it as two pieces, if you just want to get us an update on how you're responding, that's fine too, and then we can do it. If you think we need to know that before we don't want to hold you up.
No, and you won't hold us up. I just wanted to know what your preference was.
My preference is to hold out and wait for him.
I mean, You said you're already acting on the things and on all the processes going there, and we've got a lot of things to do, so if we got somebody that in the can we just wait and he does the presentation and it's no work for you, versus we task you to separately set up a thing. I'd rather have you focus on the other things while your team is working through using that information.
My thought was actually the opposite, but I'm fine to go as the board wishes. My thought was just that because the presentations in the past have sort of just been reading to us what's in the packet, I think it would be much more informative to see, just get that information in the packet and then to have the presentation itself be less reviewing what was in the packet and more talking about what we're doing.
And that's a great point. I don't have a problem with that. But I think that what we can do then is let's think about it as two different things. One is his presentation and the information that he's going to provide to us, and then the response that you guys have. And you can put the cart in front of the horse. That's fine with me. So if you think you can get on the agenda and you have meaningful information that you want to give us early, go ahead. If you think you need more time to give it, then that's up to you guys. And to Chuck's point or Daryl's point, don't do it just to do it. Put on your list of priorities.
Right.
And don't do this because we've talked about it tonight. Like, oh well, we talked about it. Now we got to go do this thing.
Okay.
Do it when it's right for you guys. But I think the point is we would very much like to hear a fairly detailed presentation on what the responses are. And that would be meaningful to
Can I
us.
just add something?
John, go ahead.
This is actually new information, and it's also from this week. We have a couple early release days coming up, and we have them dedicated each month. And our school psychologist at the high school, along with a licensed clinical social worker, is going to reach out to the middle school guidance department coordinator, Sarah Dorfman, and they're going to spend the next couple early releases, at least 2 of them are, on reviewing the YRBS data. So it syncs up nicely with the April presentation, because not only can you hear from the gentleman about, at a school committee meeting in April about what the findings were, but you can hear perhaps from our school psychologists and social workers and adjustment counselors.
We have adjustment
about,
counselor, nurses, PE.
About what their plans are to do with the data.
That's good.
And that might be, all at once, that might be refreshing for a school committee rather than waiting a few months to find out what we're going to do with it.
Yeah, that
So-
sounds good. I think you got to understand what we're looking for.
Sure.
I think that'll take care of all
Yeah.
the things that we want to hear on the.
My concern was less about February versus April,
Yeah,
but more
just the
actual
content,
presentation.
absolutely.
I'd love to have,
we
read up
definitely want
here
that.
rather than
Yeah.
some outside guy.
And would you like me to send the report beforehand?
Yeah, I think that would be fine, for sure, definitely.
You could send it now, or not now, but whenever it's ready.
Yeah.
I'll send it out.
Jerry Lynn, do you have a
as soon as I
comment?
Just in the school committee once mentioned about the importance of knowing what staff are doing in their self-guided early release professional development sessions, and this would be a prime example
Great.
of how it's a venue for different types of work, and that just reinforces how school committee wanted to make those reports too.
All right, good.
And I
Thank
can
you.
think of nothing more important for them to be doing, for the school psychologists and the team to be doing as a team than looking at these sort of indicators and making a plan.
All right, good.
Last item is just Edwin Teaching and Learning. If you recall, our TTT districts, Race to the Top districts, had access to Edwin Teaching and Learning. Other districts did not have access, that didn't belong to that group, so to speak. They did open it up to everybody. We've been looking at it. We're going to dip our toe in the water and have a few staff trained. What's intriguing to me is, or to us more correctly, is the resource bank of test items that may be advantageous. But we're proceeding cautiously at the same time because the RTTT funding is drying up. So we want to make sure that if we're going to invest time and energy into something that this entity actually exists beyond a year or 2 from now. But the test item bank component is something that I'm excited about. I'm glad that this company at least has started doing that. Teachers do need those resources. It helps immensely as they're designing assessments for students.
Make a quick comment on that? Sure. I've been looking at Edwin since maybe a year or 2 ago and working with Jerry Lynn on looking at the post-graduation results. And although Edwin was brought along through Race to the Top, I think that it's become such a key part. I run into it statewide on a lot of different issues, that I don't see them getting rid of it in the coming years, despite not having that Race to the Top money. They might not be updating it or adding new components to it, but I think the existing components are very popular across a wide range of people who want to be doing different things from different viewpoints in education. It's very popular.
There are two parts, though, and I misrepresented that perhaps a bit. The Edwin Analytics I don't have a concern about. We've been using that for a number of years, but it's the Edwin Teaching and Learning, which is that separate prong, and that's the one that...
And that's the one that I've heard lots of good things about, even though I wasn't the one working, because you and I were looking at the analytics, not the teaching and learning.
Yeah. Just to reiterate the point that the superintendent's made, there are different levels of access to two different platforms. So there's the Edwin Analytics, and then there's Edwin Teaching and Learning. And the teaching and learning is more curriculum and assessment, and that's what the superintendent is talking about. And up until this point, our district did not have access to that whatsoever. That was the Race to the Top districts. And then they said, then the district had to indicate whether at this point our district would be interested in learning more about that platform. And that's what the superintendent's saying. An initial training team. Dr. Detlar will be on it and some others. So our district hasn't even started that yet.
I mean, I've heard elsewhere in other education, statewide, other education circles from Race to the Top districts that this is an important tool for them. And I would expect that it would remain, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yep, good point. You have some access to some information that you don't there too, so that's good.
All right, anything else under the superintendent's report?
That's it, thank you.
All right. Interested citizens. Once, twice, done. All right. It's not
Interesting.
listed.
Interesting. How about an interested principal?
Interested,
Just
yes.
one little reminder, I meant to get the plug in when I was up talking before about, please remember that Winterfest is coming up on Friday, January 30th, from 5 to 8 in the evening. We'll have food, fun, and games, and our cakewalk. Cakewalk is there. I expect to see you there participating. As well as our basket raffle. I've seen some great items coming in, a watercolor, a wonderful tool set has come in. There's an American Girl doll, a Kindle, some great things, so.
How about our central office basket?
Yeah, come on. Well, I haven't heard what it is yet.
Come on.
What is it?
Pile of paper.
It's a repeat of last year.
A repeat of last year's. What was last
Raffle
year's?
tickets.
Lottery tickets. Lottery tickets.
Stapler.
Lottery tickets. Staple.
Index cards.
Superintendent slide rules. Autographed.
Colored paper.
It'll be a great time, so please,
Hey, the
fun-
$1 million
fun
ticket
for
is in
all
there.
ages.
Imagine.
All right, before we jump into subcommittee reports, is there any new business that
Yeah,
anyone would like
I have
to?
a couple of things. So last year, we were starting the discussion about school start date. And we had indicated that we probably wanted to have maybe an open session for community input before setting the final calendar. And then I realized there's also contractual implications to that. I think we want to try to maybe get a discussion scheduled about the school start date.
All right. So when do the calendar discussion starts, what, the end of February, more or less? So yeah, I think we should probably do that.
So a public forum, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying, Darryl?
Yeah. There was a lot of interest about the
Yeah,
start
no
date,
doubt
and I think
about
we
it.
ought to make, at least have that input as it modulates
So
our setting
Start of
calendar.
the school year, not start of the school day.
There's a separate, people have asked about start of the school day, and I think we might want to do that as a separate discussion.
Yeah, I agree, because I think both of them are going to engender quite a bit of input.
Right,
I think it'd be a lot to swallow in one go.
Yeah,
so.
and likewise, I realize that they may have contractual implications, so we need to make sure that we don't overset expectations, but we need to make sure that we did mention to people that we'd
Bring it back up.
So
bring it back up.
given that we know people are going to want to participate in that, we need to give enough notice. So I don't want to do it the next meeting, which is the 29th. But why don't we do it the week after that?
First meeting in February?
Yeah, and let's do a 6 o'clock start. February 12th. We'll do a 6 o'clock start, because I think that'll, sure, you could probably fill an hour on that one pretty easily. But in preparation of that, can we put together, when I say we, I mean you, some information, contractual constraints that we might be facing, and maybe some information on what other districts do and why. And then obviously, you guys are going to chime in on what you think is pros and cons of different methods of starting the school year.
Can I jump in?
Yes. Yep.
I'd ask the administrative team to ask their staff as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
For
You guys,
input.
right, you
Okay.
should, yeah, you should definitely, right, you guys should have some, information for
Representation,
us and the public about.
What the teachers want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Staff.
Right.
Mark and Rich and I won't be here at the start of that meeting. We're in our SAI endorsement class.
That's okay.
Yeah, but we should come up with a team answer.
Yeah, exactly. As long as Kelly has that, I don't think we need you guys for that, because it's just a community input thing, and we just want to have some things we can talk about. And even responses conceivably, if somebody says, well, why would you do that? We say, well, here's why. Staff already told us that can't happen, or.
Would you like me to meet with the LEA as well?
Just to put on their radar, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna meet with them anyway, I'd bring it up,
I meet with them once a month. anyway,
Yeah,
so-
if you're gonna have that meeting, I would just say, we're gonna go talk about this, and.
Having a discussion.
I mean, we're certainly not gonna come on to any determinations. It's just gonna be the initial input type thing, and then we'll go from there.
What contractual changes, we wouldn't have to make any changes themselves in the contract, we would just need to get the approval of.
Currently,
Not necessarily.
the
I'd
contract
say
says
let's
will
not
not start until.
worry about that right now, because I just wanted to bring it up that we need to schedule it, not solve all the issues of it, because none of us have any of the material to know.
I got it.
Okay. All right, and then in terms of the school, the start time of a school day, we'll circle back to that.
Yeah.
And I know that I think there's some other, I think if we can get past the start of the school year, we can then start to think about other things like school vacations and those types of things. Oh, and I think that would go in with that one. And that would be a more, I don't think we're going to get any of that solved for next September. But we can, move forward on that. So, that sound all right?
Yeah, no, I'm
Okay.
And then the other one, I meant to bring it up during recognition there, is in the spirit of, as we continue to celebrate the success of our students, the one item we don't get a report to the school committee is the John and Abigail scholarships from the MCAS things there. And I think that's, we put a lot of pain to make them succeed at MCAS, and there is a little thing back that would be good to make sure that that information flows up formally to the school committee.
We did get that, didn't we?
No.
You sure?
Not this year?
Former McKella, Ethan Rembacher.
No, that was AP
was-
Scholars and
It's the same-
National
the
Merit.
same kids.
No, well, no,
Could be
the
more.
MCAS
Yeah.
one is much more inclusive
Right.
than that.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's just something I would like us
Hear
to
that?
make sure that
Yeah.
flows up to us.
Actually, Darrell, I apologize, Darrell, you and I talked about this, we'll get that submitted into the packet. It's just the list, it was a simple request of a reading of the names, and we talked about it, I think, at a breakfast meeting in December.
Yeah,
And-
we chatted about it, but I wanted to just
Yep.
sort of make it more of a formal request. that
Sure,
it-
we'll be happy to do that. It's an easy thing, we sent it out to the newspapers, and we'll send it out again.
Thank you.
As well as to the school committee packet, for official record.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Anybody else in business? All right, subcommittee reports, PMBC. Mike was here, but he
Well,
left.
again, I think we covered it during part of the capital discussion and things. Mike Mazzoni and I both went to the PMBC last night. They're working on their list of things as well, so.
Can I jump in here?
Yes.
It's kind of new business and just an opportunity for me to talk. Well, I used to be the PMBC rep during the whole track construction process, and I had a couple of people come to me because they thought that I was still involved with PMBC and the track, and they informed me that there were cross-country ski tracks on the track. So, on camera, do not cross-country ski on the track.
And don't shovel the track.
Do not shovel the track to walk around the track. We spent a lot of money on that track, and we need to maintain it. It's designed to be run on or walked on.
When it's dry.
When it's dry, when it's safe.
Weather appropriate.
And just please use common sense, people. We're in the process of getting footage. We have cameras all around the property. So don't be a knucklehead. Use the track appropriately. Thank you.
We do have cameras on the track now, so.
Yes.
That's actually interesting, because I just talked to somebody about who took a walk around the track Christmas time when it was warm out still and there wasn't snow. And I asked her, I said, did they clear the track? She said, I don't think so. But how well is that information put out there with what we should expect or not expect to have access? Because obviously there's no locked gate. So people have access to getting in there. So it would be really, really, really helpful to let people know, look, if it's wet at all, you should not be on it.
All right, so-
And I don't know if it's well posted. I know there was some rules right on the outside, but I don't know if it says anything about weather.
So I would recommend that we take an approach, and I don't know if I guess we are the right authority to do this. We should either chain it up and lock it for the winter, which I don't think is the appropriate thing, because there are days when it's beautiful, it's clear, and people want to go walk or run. That's what we built it for. It's a community track. But maybe we do have to police it and flip a sign up that says closed when it's covered with snow, or.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, just really very explicit, this is strictly for running or walking.
You could have 8 signs on
No,
that track, Lisa, and
I
it
know.
wouldn't, Cindy
I know.
did a lot of work on that
it's
track, and
just- I think
she
people-
criticized me for not putting more signs up, but it doesn't matter.
Problem is, you're right, you can't
But people have to-
sign
yeah, you have to-
every contingency. People have to use, like Chuck said, I mean, this may be a good one, though, this may be an appropriate one, like, winter use, please, do not shovel the track.
I mean, cross-country
No,
skiing,
right.
so I'm assuming they had
Maybe you don't want
poles.
to be on the track when it's wet. Maybe, really, maybe it is, the track should not be used unless the conditions are this. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Because if it were asphalt, you can walk on it, it doesn't matter what's on it.
Unlock it, when it's just unlock it.
So not all the openings there have gates.
That's the
I mean,
problem. And plus, it's not like it's that big a fence
Well,
anyway. You get over, although with cross-country skis on, it might be hard to get over.
You can take the skis
Take them off
off
first? Oh,
and then
yeah, that would work. I
hop
forget.
them over and then-
They probably vaulted. It's like the kid that jumped over the platform at the MBTA station.
Tell us more, Alex.
You shouldn't even be
White
near
House
the track
fence?
if you're on cross-country skis. You got the whole other field to deal
Seriously.
with.
And to shovel, I mean, that's a lot of shovel, it's a quarter of a mile. You're looking at shovel, come to my house.
No, I'm not saying, I'm saying that maybe people really aren't using common sense.
Clearly.
Obviously.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we don't have to figure that part out. If you have a driving concern, which it sounds like you do, get with our staff.
There are video cameras there. There are video
No,
cameras.
I'm not poo-pooing that. I'm just saying, the right way to go about it is, you can always get with the staff and figure out a solution. We don't need to debate signage at the track.
It should be, again, noted, there are video cameras now that we install that do monitor that track, so.
Very good. All right. Anything else?
Question from.
I'm pretty sure I'm done.
PMBC related.
Question from the audience.
Oh, sorry. Question, yes.
Actually, I want to bring this up. So you scheduled the open meeting for February 12th, right?
Yes.
It's also the date of the grade 5 band and chorus performance, which is 6:30 to 7:30. I don't know about everything.
What time's it 6:30 to 7:30?
6:30 to 7:30. So you'll be without journalists.
Can we get you a whole schedule, John?
Do it the second week, this 26th? Is that okay with you guys? I mean,
Oh, yeah,
I'm trying to,
okay.
all right, that's fine.
Second.
All right, we'll do it the 26th.
Reading. 26th February?
Actually, then you guys can be here if you want to be here too.
It's just chorus. That's an inappropriate entry in the calendar. There is an event, but it's not. Is that what you're saying, Lisa, that it can't be banned because of All-Town Ban? Is that what I hear you saying, Bethany?
That's the 10th.
We can move back to
But it's just chorus, I think. I don't think it's band and chorus.
We're gonna do it the 26th.
Because the band is playing an All-Town Ban.
You guys have something else
right
you're
here,
doing too, so let's do it the 26th.
26th sounds good to me.
Lock it up.
Thank you, John.
All right, Budget Subcommittee. I sent a document to Steve, I gave you guys hard copies, it will go into the packet, but I just want to discuss this. So we've been at a couple of meetings now with the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom, and they're presenting information from the town finance admin team in terms of how the budget process is going. What we're being told is that the way they're framing the discussion is there's a level staffing request by all the town departments, and then there is what they call the mission requested budget. And at the level staffing, based on the assumptions that are being made by the town finance admin team on revenues, both local tax revenue, local aid, all the different pieces of the pie that fit together, there's currently about a $320,000 deficit in terms of what they expect to take in revenue and what a level staffed budget would cost. And then when you go up to the mission requested, that number jumps up to more like $1.4 million deficit. The issue is that what I wanted to show on this slide is that the number that they put in for the school appropriation for level staffing literally only considers our staffing increase, which is about $550,000. What we've communicated to them, and they know, they just haven't fitted, I think we haven't really fitted into the framework, because their framework is a little different than the way we look at things. There is also, what we've talked about already, a projected $400,000 increase in sped expenses. We cannot stay level staffed unless that $400,000 is met on the appropriation or in some other way. So really, the way I think that the town should be looking at it is, and we've talked about this with them at the meeting, so this isn't new information to them either. They know about the sped increase, it's been brought up to them, but I really think that the jump-off point is more like $723,000 for a level service type of budget, is the word I would use. And then, the overall, if you went to mission requested for everybody, it would be more like, it would still go to that $1.4 million number. In talking about this, I met with Betsy Bowling, the chair of the Finance Committee, over the Christmas break, and we talked about these types of things and how the framework fits and where the numbers are. And one thing that they asked for that we're working on is a little bit more detail on where our staffing levels are and how our staffing levels fit our current student population, building by building. So we're working on that. They also, because of the $400,000 increase in special education, they would like some information on particular vendors and where the increases are and what's driving that, whether it's additional services, new kids, and increases in the contracts for out-of-district placements, which is primarily what that $400,000 is the out-of-district part of SPED. So we're working on that with them, and then so we're going to finalize our staffing numbers and our salary increases to make sure that it fits into that 550 number. We'll continue to look at the SPED number and make sure that $400,000 is the right number for the increase. We're also looking at the circuit breaker and thinking about how much is going to be in there, and we had a long discussion last year about budgeting the use of circuit breaker versus, we know we have to spend it, we know that the amount that we get reimbursed in FY 2015 will have to be spent in FY 2016, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to budget it. We can hold some back in reserve, which is what we did this year, and it worked out well because we ended up using it on unexpected costs. So there's some strategies that we're going to, but we need to get the circuit breaker number locked down, and then we can figure out what's the best way to apply it versus a budget versus a spending issue. And also school choice, obviously, is the other big component. So from a budget subcommittee perspective, we'll keep working all those things. And then obviously, we're going to continue to meet with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee and monitor the assumptions that they make, because those numbers could change and could have an impact on, what type of deficit we think we're facing. And we haven't had any discussion, and I do not believe there's been any discussion by the Board of Selectmen or the FinCom on strategies if the number is 300,000 or something along those lines of, if we do have to make cuts, where the cuts would come from, whether it's other town departments or school department, which side would bear which portions of the cost. None of that has occurred yet. I think they're waiting to get more information, and that'll happen as we go down farther into the process in the winter and spring, running up to town meeting. But But I just want to make sure that, you know, the numbers that we're talking about, $320,000 deficit versus a $1.4 million, is that we don't lose track that $550,000, which is what the increase is at that level staffing number, I don't really, I'm not operating under that at all, that's like our level staffing number. Our staffing number has to be more like, you know, 950, the 550 for the steps and lanes, and then what we have right now is a $400,000 increase in sped. So, does anybody have any comments on that?
Yeah, so to use Kelly's comment, he's the keeper of the wish list thing there. And I'm not even talking about things on the wish list. There's things that have been identified through the reviews that are going to drive us to increasing staffing. So we have a required staffing level, which may not be a level staffing thing. Where does that fit in the calculus of your discussion?
Right now, that number would be reflected in the mission requested budget that is being put out. And that shows our total increase of school appropriation at $1.1 million. That includes the $550 for our current staff, for steps and lanes, $400 for the sped increase, and then there was about another $180,000 that Kelly put $100,000 for additional staffing, specifically what you were just alluding to, $50,000 for curriculum materials, and $20,000 for Chapter 22. 222. Yeah, Chapter 222, sorry. I'm old enough to know what that number means in the context of education. Right, Room 222? You guys
That's
remember
right.
that one?
I remember that, yes.
Over my head.
Right, so two of those, we're gonna have to do whether the selectmen approve the budget or not. I guess that's my point.
Or not do something else and fund those, you're right. You
No,
know,
that's what I mean,
exactly.
that's gotta be brought into the discussion.
Right.
Because it's not an optional service that we wanna offer, it's a required service we have to provide.
The phrase we should be using about this budget is level services, which is not what this number is. This number would be fewer services, and I think that's the message that we need to send.
I just want to make sure that
No, I agree with you. I agree
that piece
100%.
doesn't get lost
Yep.
in the discussion.
Yep, I agree 100%.
Because I don't think at any point we're proposing anything.
And like I
that's,
say,
in
at
the
no
wish list
point during the
category.
discussions that we've had with the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen have anybody said, you know, you simply can't do, nor have they said that to the fire department or the police department or anybody. You know, they're showing that there is certainly concern that it's probably highly, almost impossible that all departments are going to achieve their mission requested budget, if any. You know, the way they're framing it, and I think that's becoming apparent to everyone. But nobody's started to run around and say, well, we'll do this, but we can't do that, and, you know, school department, you're gonna have to figure that part of it out on your own. None of that's happened. Some of it will happen. I mean, it's an inevitable part of the process. And, you know, like I said, we have how we use circuit breaker, how we use school choice, how some of the assumptions change on the revenue side will go a long way towards determining, you know, what we feel we need to do and how we're going to, you know, either empower and or constrain the admin team in different aspects of how they implement the budget.
And it's really level staffing as it pertains to statutory requirements. Level staffing is, just by itself, doesn't take care of that other dimension.
And we talked about this earlier. I mean, some of the impact of the 40B project is another way of looking at that. Right, you know, we will have to add staff just to, you know, because we have to. And how the town addresses that and manages that.
We don't get to pick and choose where we add it either there.
Well, exactly, nor do we get to
No,
pick and choose.
I just was concerned about what kind of language is used,
Yep.
because ours,
Yeah.
it really needs almost a slightly different phraseology.
I agree with you,
there.
and you know, Bonnie fitted in there in the way she saw fit, because that's the model they're using, and it's a perfectly viable model that they're using. I think that as long as we keep our eyes open and you know, continue to communicate how we see it, I think we'll be fine. I don't think that, and like I say, nobody on either one of those boards has said, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't work, you can't do that. You know, they understand exactly where we're coming from. Like I say, they do want some more detail, which is fine. I think we all want more detail on that, and we're going to get there as we get through the process, and that's fine. But, you know, again, as always, it's going to be another difficult budget year. You know, we're not just gonna write the check and cash it and go do our business. We're gonna have to make some tough decisions, and hopefully things will work out, and I'm optimistic that they will. I don't consider this an insurmountable issue, and nobody on the other two boards has communicated that they're frustrated with that either. I think they're just trying to figure out, you know, what's the best way to solve the problem, and we'll figure that out together. All right. All right. Policy Subcommittee.
Nothing to.
No candy.
It's been a while since we had candy.
Yeah, well, it was a busy holidays.
All right, do we need executive session? No executive session. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made to adjourn, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. I'd like to thank Chris from LCTV. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Kirby will be told you did a fine job. He doesn't have to come back again if he doesn't want to. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you.